Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chief Sobomabo Jackridge. By the grace of God, I'm the leader of the Network for Defense of Democracy and Good Governance, and also the leader of Kingdom and Unity Forum, KUF. I have to call you this evening to grant a World Press Conference titled Movement for the Actualization of the Upland Riverine Dichotomy for Peace, Equity, and Justice in Rivers State. The subject or concept of Upland Riverine Dichotomy in the political events of Rivers State is nothing new, but dates as far back to the era just after the creation of Rivers State. Ideally, in sane democratic climb, the most suitable qualified person emerges as the leader of the people based on popular vote in a free, fair, and credible election. And as such leads accommodating all interests and divides, no matter which tribe it comes from. In the case of Rivers State, if such leader sees everybody, whether from the riverine or upland, as his constituents, and evenly spread development to every part using the best hands in all projects executed, the need for riverine upland dichotomy may not be necessary to canvass. How the upland riverine dichotomy political agreement was introduced in Rivers State politics. Let me take you down memory lane on how the issue of upland riverine dichotomy in Rivers State first began. The agitation for an upland riverine dichotomy started during the twilight of the first military governor of Old River State, Lieutenant Commander Alfred Dieter Spiff's administration, when he reshuffled his cabinet and dropped 7 commissioners. Incidentally, the 7 commissioners dropped were all from the mainland section of the state, including Dr. Obiwale and Ken Sarawiwa of blessed memory. These commissioners had then perceived the action of the then governor as being undue victimization and marginalization by reason of their being from a particular section of the state, while their counterparts, mostly from the riverine Asian majority, were favored. Angered by the development, the Deo ganged up and fought back against what they called the marginalization of the upland section of the state. This gave birth to the concept of upland riverine segregation and led to the agitation of the creation of a Port Harcourt state. Upland political leaders led by Dr. Obiwale and Ken Sarawiwa used upland riverine divide as a defining terminology to describe the Ijos and their mainland neighbors in the Old River State. They used this definitive terminology as a campaign tool against the perceived domination of the political landscape at the time by the riverine Ijos in the affairs of the Old River State. Thus, the upland riverine concept was coined out of protest by the upland co-indigents of the state. In order to douse the tension created by the crisis of agitation for a Port Harcourt state and the disunity it caused among the people, the political leadership at the time came up with the concept of power rotation based on the upland riverine dichotomy to ensure equity and harmonious coexistence amongst the upland and riverine Asian majority people of Old River State. This is the advent of a deliberate sharing formula for major elective and appointive position among the upland and riverine people of the state. This concept entailed that where the governor of the state comes from the upland, for instance, the deputy governor would be selected from the riverine, as well as other positions like the Speaker of the State Assembly, head of service, and other sensitive political offices, distributed accordingly to the upland riverine arrangement to create a balance. It is, however, important to note here that the agitation mostly centered on the need for inclusiveness in the affairs of governance of the state, and not about underdevelopment or infrastructural deficit in the upland. It is, however, important to note here that this agitation mostly centered on the need for inclusiveness in the affairs of governance of the state, and not about underdevelopment or infrastructural deficit in the upland. This is because the then military governor Alfred Yates Spiff, who was from the Riverine, channeled the resources of the state to executing what can best be described as phenomenal projects, mostly cited in Port Harcourt, the state capital, which has outlived successive administrations today. In the wake of democratic rule in 1999, since the upland co-indigents of the state had been on forefront of advocacy for upland riverine power rotation, in order to foster unity among citizens and ensure peaceful coexistence, prominent riverine Ijaw leaders led by Alabotio Graham Douglas and Dr. Marshall Are of blessed memory and others spearheaded the election of Governor Peter Odele, an upland person, to have the first shot in the upland riverine political arrangement, with a deal to allow it to rotate similarly to the riverine after the completion of his 2 terms. Although not officially gazetted, every political actor in Rivers State is aware of this political arrangement. This is similar to the point corroborated by the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasri El-Rufai, while commenting recently on Nigeria's political arrangement. He said, although the power shift arrangement among the various regions of the country is unconstitutional, it is, however, a political design that must be respected. He said, and I quote, "I believe that there is no developed country across the world that considers leadership based on where someone comes from. However, in Nigeria politics, there is an arrangement that we all believe on rotational leadership. We are aware of that one. Anyone who denies that is wrong. Reason the upland riverine dichotomy must be upheld. With the emergence of Dr. Peter Odele in 1999 to 2007 as a beneficiary of the power rotation formula in the state, a feat achieved with the backing of frontline riverine politicians, the late Marshall Are, Alaba Graham Douglas, and others, one would have expected Dr. Peter Odele to also facilitate the rotation of power to the riverine after the completion of his 8-year, 2 terms administration. However, that was not to be, as another upland brother from the Ikwere ethnic group, Barrister Celestine Omea, took over as governor. By way of sheer divine providence, another Ikwere son, Rotimi Chubika Amechi, took over the governance of the state after he secured a landmark judgment at the Supreme Court. Governor Amechi served out his 2 tenures from 2007 to 2015. Yet in 2015, as though ignoring the existing political arrangement of upland riverine dichotomy, another Ikwere son, Chief Barrister Wike, emerged as governor of the state. However, since power rotated to the upland about 20 years ago, the beneficiaries of the upland riverine dichotomy, who are mostly our Ikwere brothers, are now saying that what is important is not where the governor comes from, but how projects are distributed equitably to all communities in the state. According to Governor Wike, in a Vanguard newspaper publication dated April 9th, 2019, headlined, "Upland riverine differences no longer necessary in Rivers State." It appears apparent that some upland political decision makers are out to perfect a script designed to keep the upland in a perpetual leadership of the state. In his words during an interview with organizers of Zik Leadership Prize Award, Governor Wike is quoted in the said Vanguard publication as saying, "In this state, before all you see and here was tribalism, that you are from the upland, you are from the riverine, and so people, we are not doing things as if we are one rivers. So we felt that one way we can make progress is if we see ourselves as one, and once that is done, then we have moved to the next step. So today our concern is that the issue of upland riverine is no longer necessary. We see ourselves as one river state, and it is necessary because of the projects and programs we are carrying out in all the local government areas in the state. So the issue of upland riverine differences is relegated to the background. Suffice to note, however, that after 24 years of upland rule in the state, culminating the end of Governor Wike's tenure, holding on to the above commentary will amount to selfishness and deceitful politicking aimed at distorting history and beclouding the minds of young and uninformed members of the public about the term upland riverine dichotomy, how it came about, its purpose, and how it is implemented. It will be totally unfair to be talking about abrogation of upland riverine dichotomy now that the upland, especially the equerries, would have held sway in the helm of affairs of the state for 24 years at the end of Wike's tenure in office by 2023. If that is done, it portends great danger to the overall peace and stability of the state. Now the way forward. It therefore behooves on all political actors in the state not to feign ignorance or play to the gallery on this matter, as if not properly handled, is capable of destroying the very fabrics of our existence as one united rivers. In fairness to the people of the upland part of the state, not all uplands have benefited from the power ceded to the upland. Only the Orachis, Dr. Peter Odele, and the Kwere, Celestine Omea, Chibika Amechi, and Nyenso Wike in these past 20 years have benefited greatly from the arrangement. As I asserted earlier, the issue of upland riverine power rotation has become very necessary following growing concerns of concentration of development in mostly a section of the state. For instance, of what use is citing the Real Madrid Football Academy side by side with the Yakubu Gowon Stadium in the already saturated and overpopulated Port Harcourt, the state capital? Why not cite such projects in LGA like a chain so that it can attract development to open up that area? Alternatively, that should have also been an opportunity to upgrade or convert the famous Isakasi School in Okreka, LGA, that has produced international sports stars over the years for the state and Nigeria at large, to the Real Madrid Football Academy to open up vistas of opportunity for the development of Okrekans and by extension, its adjoining LGAs. If you pay a visit to that school today, it is in a total sorry state of comatose. Why award massive projects in Port Harcourt and Obiako to only reputable firms like Julius Berger, Lou Breeze Construction Company, and others, but award projects in other LGAs to local artisans and manual laborers who do not have any track record of expertise? Recent plans to commence renovation of the Yakubu Gowon Stadium, renovation of the State Assembly quarters for lawmakers, especially at the period of global economic downturn due to COVID-19, leave so much in the minds of Rivers people to ponder about. Are there no other pressing infrastructural needs of our people in other parts of the state other than paying attention to these non-essential or urgent projects? How about completing the 1,400 housing units at Rainbow Estate nearly at 70% completion stage, embarked upon by the Governor Rotimi Amechi administration, but has been left abandoned to rot away? Completion of such landmark project will address to a large extent the accommodation deficit in Port Harcourt and adjoining LGAs, and will also ease citizens the high cost of accommodation rents. Completing the abandoned bridge linking Okreka and Port Harcourt and constructing new bridges to link our riverine communities to urban centers of the state. We reduce associated risk of lives and property to the constant threat of sea piracy on our waterways. Top on the priority of the Governor Wike administration should be urgently reconstructing the totally decayed Jonkrama Grammar School in Awoda West, LG, and Jonkrama General Hospital, the only general hospital in Egeni, Awoda West, LGA, to take care of the health needs of the people in this period of global health crisis. What will it take the Rivers State government to renovate the famous Kalabari Girls High School, Medwood at Buguma, Asato local government area, and upgrade it to a satellite campus of one of the state-owned tertiary institutions to attract development to the 3 LGAs of the Kalabari Kingdom, if it is truly committed to opening up our suburbs to experience rapid development? Today, Lagos State has no villages and suburbs, as all parts of state has been transformed into urban centers, so that residents of that state have no need to migrate to Ikeja, the state capital, to access good infrastructure. On the other hand, Rivers State can still tend to be backwards, as it can only boast of 2 city centers, Port Harcourt and Obiakpor. Recently, the poor and unmotorable state of internal roads in Eche, LGA, including Igbo Eleme roads, Umubule Igbo, Eche Road, Chokoche, Okomoko roads, Umuichem Egwi Link roads, Olakwo Aku roads, Ni Odufo roads, and Okeyi Ubodo roads, which have caused residents of that area untold agony-led death, including some Eche council officials of the area to embark on a protest to call on the attention of the state government to come to their aid. With this trend, it is hard to convince residents of the state that this administration is not focused on concentrating development in Port Harcourt and Obiakpor, as can be seen in the ongoing construction of 3 flyover bridges simultaneously in the area. Valid that these projects were necessary due to the gridlock always experienced in those areas. But shockingly, the 4th flyover, being the Rumola Bridge, which was not captured in the 2020 budget, how urgent is such project to be given priority to the point of putting the entire state in the debt, with recent approval from the State Assembly to borrow 18 billion naira to execute the project? Again, just last week, the state government signed contract with Julius Berger for the construction of the 5th flyover bridge at GRA Junction, still on the same Port Harcourt-Aba Express Road, which is said to gulp 15 billion naira to execute. How urgent and necessary is that project, which was not even captured in the 2020 appropriation bill of the state? Meanwhile, the Trans-Kalabari Road that was captured in the 2020 budget and used as a campaign tool or bait to get the support of the Calabaris in the 2015 governorship election, and other projects captured in the budget are yet to see the light of the day as I speak. There ought to be citing of some key projects in suburbs like Emoa, Opobo in Koro, Andoni, Omuma, Gokana, Tai, Awoda East, Akukutoro, Onelga, Boni, Degema, Awoda East, Oyibo, Kana, Abua, Odua, Okubolo, and the renovation of existing but non-functional ones like the Shanghai Farm, the Bugma Fish Farm, and others. Questions on the lips of the Network for Defense of Democracy and Good Governance, NDDGG, the Kengba Unity Forum, KUF, and River Citizens. What was the 118 billion naira withdrawn from Zenith Bank counter by River State government officials used to warrant order borrow of 18 billion naira spree? Governor Wike recently cleared the air that the state is yet to receive any money from the recently approved federal government 78.9 billion naira refund for federal projects executed by the state government. But while as he remained silent over the allegation, leveled against the Rivers State government by the EFCC, that each official withdrew 118 billion naira over Zenith Bank counter. What was the money used for? I also wish to draw the attention of Rivers people to join us in asking the Rivers State government where our recently launched COVID-19 palliative buses are. We can no longer find anyone on our roads or even parks where they are usually kept at the government house car park. We hope they have not been moved to Edo State for electioneering processes. We are also hoping that the recently approved 18 billion naira loan is not for the purpose of executing elections in Edo State. One may be tempted to ask, if the cost of executing 3 flyovers at Rebisi, Rumo-Ogba, and Rumo-Okoro costs 23 billion naira, how come construction of only Rumo-Ola flyover and its adjoining roads costs a whooping sum of 18 billion naira, and that of GRA Junction 15 billion naira? With all these facts emerging, I, on behalf of the Network for Defense of Democracy and Good Governance, NDGG, and the Kengmanchi Forum, call on the EFCC and the ICPC to carefully probe the account of construction giant Julius Berger, so it does not end up becoming a conduit pipe to siphon the resources of the state. Furthermore, it is totally unfortunate that the value of the 13% oil derivation funds to the state from 2015 till date running into trillions of naira, which is supposed to be funds accruable to oil-bearing communities for oil exploration in their land, which has resulted to destruction of the environment. Their only means of livelihood have been unaccounted for. With the foregoing, I, on behalf of the Network for Defense of Democracy and Good Governance, NDGG, and the Kengmanchi Forum, KUF, call on political parties, actors, opinion leaders, traditional rulers, and all people of Rivers State with interest to ensuring an even distribution of wealth for the development of every section without bias, to join us to speak to our conscience, to respect the existing upland riverine political arrangement ahead of the 2023 governorship election, for purpose of fairness, equity, and the overall interest of the state. And by this publication, which serves as a witness to our agitation, if God tarries, by His grace, we will also work to ensure that power rotates back to the upland, and this time around the ethnic groups yet to benefit from the leadership of the state to also take a shot. This is the only pinnacle to guarantee real development in all nook and cranny of our state. We particularly appeal to our political parties and our riverine politicians not to get it wrong this time, as any wrong move will see our upland brothers hold on to power for 32 years. Political parties should ensure that tickets for governorship positions should be ceded to only riverine candidates. The time to act is now. Thank you. Signed by myself, Subumobo Jack Rich, Leader Network for Defense of Democracy and Good Governance.